Hello everyone, Lawrence Fleming here with another quick video. I'm going to do a little bit different video here. I keep getting questions about who I am and what experiences I've had and why I'm teaching the Bible. So I'm going to go ahead and do this quick testimonial about how I became a Christian and why I'm doing these videos. To start off with, I'm wearing my dad's baseball team. He played for the Boston Red Sox back in 1939, so a long time ago. Anyhow, I had a fairly normal life growing up, but my parents were not religious. But they sent me to various churches to try to find a home for me. And they included Catholic churches and Protestant churches and even a synagogue or two. And those were helpful because I learned the alphabet and a lot of the different Bible verses that I know now. But it wasn't until I went in the Navy in 1972, I'm a Vietnam veteran, that when I went to school in San Francisco, there was a church outreach program, and they were out fishing for souls. They would send a bus. I was going to school near San Francisco, but we would go into the city on the weekends, and they sent a bus to pick up wandering sailors and take them back to the church. Now, if they'd have just thrown Bible verses at us, we wouldn't have paid attention. We wouldn't have stayed there. But they didn't. If you're going to fish, you got to use bait. So they had games. We had volleyball and softball and all kinds of other things that we did. We got fed very well. And of course, they had hostesses. As a young man, it was nice to see women, because at that time there were no women in the military that I was able to see and work with, especially on a ship. But anyhow, I became a Christian there because of that. And God then, from then on, looked after me. I know when I got to my first duty station, when I was assigned to a destroyer, we were off fighting in Vietnam area in Cambodia, shelling. We weren't there on the land, of course, we were on a ship, but we were lobbing shells at shore bases. But I was starting to backslide because I was surrounded by a lot of sailors who don't always have the best language or attitude. Well, I was assigned to get the mail. Every time we came into port, someone had to go get the mail and bring it to the division. I was in the electronic division. I worked on radar. And the guy handing out the mail was a Christian. And he found out I was one, and he would hit me up with, let's do a Bible study. Let's get together and talk about God. I couldn't get away. Jesus did that on purpose, and it kept me from backsliding. And when we got back to the States and the ship went in the yards, we were able to get in a room together because we couldn't stay on the ship. And we were playing Christian music the entire time. God was looking out for me. And this was during a revival time, the early 70s in Southern California. Calvary Chapel and Chuck Smith was going hot back then. And music was coming out. We had folk music, of course, but we had Christian rock music. And we would go to concerts on Saturday night. The main one was at Calvary Chapel, but there were others that had them. And young people listening to Christian music on the weekend at a concert, that's the best thing you can do with your time. Keeps you out of trouble. Well, eventually I did other things, but I managed to get involved in churches as we moved around. And I started teaching the Bible studies. I enjoy history. I really love learning how things happen, how people got from one point to another. There was a TV show 20 years ago now, I guess, called Connections. It was narrated, it was a British show. It was narrated by a man by the name of James Burke. And he would basically take you from the beginning of the slightest inkling of technology all the way through to the computers, to airplanes, to the atomic bomb, whatever. But he would start off with, people were dying of swamp gas. And so they sent scientists in to investigate this, and they would capture the swamp gas. And then they would put electricity on it and it would glow. We ended up with tubes set out of it that we could have our original electronics was all based on tubes, which is what I worked on when I was in the Navy. Now it's all solid state. But in any case, God kept me going. He kept my interest up. I enjoy studying all this, but I never went to seminary. I've always been a self-study. I worked in computers and aerospace for years without a degree because I taught myself how to build a computer, then how to program it. And the advantage I had over college grads is they weren't working in state of the art. I was. I eventually worked on a satellite system for the military that's flying around up there now. And it was a fun job, but I still had church on the weekend and during the week and Bible studies, and that kept me going. And as long as I was doing what God wanted me to do, he was blessing me in all the work that I did. I finally moved my family to Georgia out of Southern California. I'd kind of given up on working in the film industry because I didn't like certain types of Hollywood celebrities that I was seeing back then. My dad being a celebrity of himself, being a Major League Baseball player, I got to see a lot of people, many stars, and got to hang out on sets and things like that. But I didn't like the industry. We're finding out now just how bad some of those people were. But there are good, solid Christian films out there. You just don't see them all the time. Kevin Sorbo, who played Hercules, is doing a lot of work in Christian films. Before the Wrath is one of the films that I had mentioned before that he worked on. He narrated it. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. You just got to look for it. You won't find it on your mainstream networks. They don't believe in that. But in any case, I moved to Georgia. I did work here in technology as well. Found a good church. My wife worked at the church and I did my bit. And again, we taught Bible studies. And eventually, Hollywood, for some reason, packed up and moved to Georgia. And when I retired from the technology side of things, I needed something to do with my time. And of course, I'm still teaching Bible study and doing things like that. But I needed something to do that was fun. And I started getting involved. I started producing first. But then eventually I started getting in front of the camera. And I'm retired now completely. Got my Social Security check and pension, so I'm not really pushed to work right now. So I'm doing background work. Now, professional actors will wonder, why are you doing background work? You should be out there acting and getting more money. I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this because it's fun to be on set and watch these actors go through and do their bit. I mean, I was in a film as background earlier this week. My legs are still sore because we were running from monsters. That's what you get when you do sci-fi and that kind of thing. But again, I've seen all these actors, and now the core of actors are better. Back when they had the studio system back there and you had to be under a contract for years, the actors were bitter. But now they're all pretty much freelance. They may get a contract for a while, but they're happier, they're easier to talk to. So it's not too bad right now. They still don't make films that are centered on God the way they should, but the people that I'm meeting are better. And so I'll stay with it. So I do a lot of background work. I just finished up last month, 6 months on the TV show Dynasty. You want to see what the rich are doing and how they're sinning? There's a good example. It's a soap opera, but I played background, so I played various parts. I played a butler and lawyer and other things. So I'm fitting into the background. I'm not part of the bad guys, but I've been in a lot of other films and TV shows, and it's fun because we're making magic, if you will, which allows me to then learn the technology that I'm using to do these videos. I've got my own camera and rig and lights and everything I do, and occasionally I will film something. I've got a number of friends that make Star Trek fan films, and there are sets around. People have sets in their basement. In South Georgia, there's a complete set of the Enterprise that they film on. And if you're a big Star Trek fan, in upstate New York, there's another complete set, but it's a museum piece. And they get the actors up there and they have tours. So if you want to see it pristine, go up there. You want to make a film, the one in South Georgia is the one to go to. Well, anyhow, that's what I do. So during the week, during the days, I'm on set doing various background jobs. I'm not really trying to do any more than that. I act 2 or 3 times a year in various independent films, but I get time to do this. I get to teach. Every time you want to learn something, become the teacher for that subject. That's the best way to learn. And that's one of the things I like doing about this. We are in the end times. Christians should be excited for this time. Yeah, there's some worry and grief. What about your friends and relatives? Are they Christians? Well, if not, you need to work on them. At least plant the seed. They may miss the rapture because they don't accept Christ initially, but it's going to get bad and they will be looking to God. So plant the seed. Maybe it'll grow during your time here, maybe it won't. There's not a lot of time. Watchers all over the world are saying it has to be this year if the interpretation of the fig tree generation is correct. 70 to 80 years. In order for the 7-year tribulation or 70th day of Daniel to happen, it has to be this year. So that's why I come on with these videos, and I have this urgency that people learn about Christ and find that there's plenty of reasons to accept him, let alone the fact that you're going to miss the tribulation. God loves us. He sent his son to save us. That alone should be enough to accept Christ. And Christ came for everybody. He didn't just come for the Gentiles, as we're seeing now. We're in the Gentile age. We're in this age because the Jews rejected him initially when Christ was here. But don't blame them because they had to crucify him. If they didn't crucify him, if he didn't spill his blood for us, we wouldn't be saved. So that was God's plan. So don't tell the Jews that they're no longer the chosen people. They still are. Our time, our Gentile time will end. And the 70th day of Daniel will start. And God will change his focus back to the Jews. And that's not too far away. Just look at the countries around them that are wanting to go to war with them. They're testing them now, but eventually they're going to realize that they can go in and attack and that nobody on earth is going to protect them. Of course, God will, because they won't be destroyed again. And the Antichrist will have to step forward, but he can't while we're here. We're the restrainer. Okay, well, I did a little bit of talking about me, which is uncomfortable. I don't like doing that. I'd rather talk about God. But that's why I do this, and that's my background. I've been a Christian for years. It hasn't hurt me at all. For those of you worried about taking that step, yes, you will have to change your life, but for the better. So for now, until we meet in the skies, God bless.